crap. Is that the chair breaking?
It is. Look at this. The chair is all banged up. Look at that. It's literally breaking. This chair is over 40-something years old, and I think it's gonna... That's right. This piece of crap right here. Freaking 40-something-year-old chair getting ready to collect Social Security. It's kind of sad to say that you don't know if today's going to rain or not rain, and I was going to do it outside, but I decided to do it inside my porch. So make up your dang mind, Mother Nature. Didn't like that. Welcome to another episode, everybody, as I take you on a tour regarding one of the most interesting stories, yet also sad. This episode is going to be about the Devil's Tree up in Jupiter, Florida, the Martisa Martin story, and the Little Bastard story with James Dean. Let's begin with the Devil's Tree up in Jupiter, Florida. Of course, it was one of the most haunted places and still is in the United States, and this is in Florida, probably next to St. Augustine. Even though the story is not very old, it gets more and more famous. Many people report seeing ghosts and strange things happening near the tree. Unlike most urban legends, the Devil's Tree has a real dark history. Parents still tell their children to stay away from it. The true story of the Devil's Tree began on January 8, 1971, when a cop named Gerald John Schaefer. Most police officers are supposed to protect people, but not Gerard, and he was a serial killer who might have killed around 30 people. One night, Gerard saw two teenage girls hitchhiking. He showed them his old police badge and told them to get into his car. The girls thought he was a real cop and did what he said. Gerard took them to what would later be called the Devil's Tree. He wrote about the whole incident in a notebook, saying terrible things about how he tortured and killed the girls. Gerard described how he made the girls put on blindfolds. He tied ropes around the branches of the Devil's Tree and their necks. He would lift them up, choking them, and let them down to hear them beg for their lives. The girls, such as Colette Goldenuff and Barbara Ann Wilcox, were both 19 years old. Gerard eventually killed them by hanging. He then cut off their heads and returned to the tree over the next 10 days to do more awful things to their bodies. Gerard was just not a serial killer, he was also a necrophiliac. Gerard chose that tree because it was near the ruins of his childhood home. After killing the girls, he left the ropes in the tree. About 4 years later, in 1977, two men found the girls' decomposing bodies and ropes still hanging from the tree. This discovery started the legend of the Devil's Tree. The men ended up calling the cops, and they ended up taking the bodies and started matching them with the teeth, trying to find the identities of these ladies. And eventually he goes on trial and he's convicted for 2 murders, Gerald Schaefer. But they are convinced that he's done more, and they start researching it. While he's on death row for all this, he starts pen-paling Ted Bundy and saying, "I've killed more than you." But he's never officially confessing that he did the murders. Now, over the years after this has happened, years such as in the 80s and 90s, for many years, people reported seeing hooded figures doing satanic rituals around the tree of where these girls allegedly were killed and hung. So many sightings were reported that even the local police got scared. People who went near the tree were chased away by these figures or disappeared. These reports are more frightening because there are documented cases. For example, in 1985, a couple saw hooded figures while they were in the woods and ran away scared. In 1992, 2 children almost got kidnapped in the woods. In 1993, a pastor tried to exorcise the tree by placing a big wooden cross next to it, but the cross was found turned upside down, which is a common satanic symbol. Authorities and local officials eventually got tired of the ghost story of the hooded figures. Around the year 2000, they decided to make the area a park and cut down the Devil's Tree. But when 2 workers tried to cut it down with chainsaws, the chainsaws mysteriously broke. One worker took a piece of the tree with him, and both workers died in a car accident soon after. People believe that taking a piece of the Devil's Tree brings back bad luck. And in 2004, there was a woman who took a piece of the tree who tried to curse her friend, and she almost herself died in a car accident. Paranormal activity is still reported around the tree, but people hear screams coming from the park's restrooms when no one is inside, and the doors open and close by themselves. There can be cold spots that can be also felt, along with ghostly figures that have been seen. The apparitions of the 2 murdered girls hanging from the Devil's Tree are the most commonly reported sightings, but shadowy figures and other ghostly images have been seen too. The Devil's Tree is unique because it's a recent story with a real history behind it, whereas Gerald Schaefer was caught and killed in prison, but the legend of the tree still continues. Now we move on to another story, which is also sad but also creepy because of how it takes place. This one's called... I better go inside. Oh, man. Sorry, buddy, but your big brother's got to do his podcast. I know you're not going to be able to get any sleep, so I know you're going to get very upset. I just want to let you know. Wonder what he's thinking about right now.
That son of a... I'm gonna kick his goddamn... He's such a piece of... God, if only he wasn't in the freaking room, I could lick myself right in front of him. But he just won't shut up. I guess I'm gonna have to put up with it. Wait till he goes to bed tonight.
Now that we're safe inside, I go on to the story Maritza Martin. Now, this incident happened in the early 1990s, and this was a woman by the name of Maritza Martin Munez, who was married to Emilio Nunez, and this happened at Our Lady Queen of Heaven Cemetery in North Lauderdale, Florida. The incident took place during their daughter's grave, and Nunez was being interviewed by television reporter Ingrid Cruz for the show Acurio Así. Cruz accompanied him to the cemetery to film his visit. While they were filming, Martin arrived at the cemetery for her own visit. Cruz approached Martin, who was sitting silently in her car, and began insisting that Martin answer her questions. Martin and Nunez's 15-year-old daughter, Yoandra, had died by suicide in November of 1992 after it was discovered she was 13 weeks pregnant. Nunez blamed Martin for their daughter's death, believing Yoandra had been abused by her stepfather and driven to suicide by her mother. Investigators rejected both theories. Yoandra had been raised by Martin, while Nunez was not allowed to have contact with her. As Cruz continued banging on Martin's car's window demanding answers, Nunez walked back to his vehicle. Martin got out of her car knowing that she was going to die, and she noted Nunez's license plate number from the rearview mirror and started walking towards the grave. Ignoring Cruz's questions, suddenly it wasn't until Nunez returned with a 9mm semi-automatic pistol and shot Martin in the back of the head in the cemetery. He then shot her several more times while she lay on the ground. The cameraman filmed the shooting, and Cruz ran to the station vehicle screaming. They're very creepy. I want you guys to watch this video as Maritza eventually joins next to her daughter in the cemetery, which is creepy.
¿De por qué su hija se suicidó?
¡Hala! No es tan guapa, hala.
Por favor allá, don Emilio, por favor.
Hala ahora.
Por favor allá. Doña Maritza, si es tan amable, quisiera tener una reacción de usted.
Bomba. 10, 20, 30. Arriba.
Allá. Si es tan amable, me da una reacción, se lo voy a agradecer. Quiero saber por qué, la reacción, el por qué usted quiere esquivarnos a nosotros. Qué pedazo que tiene. Usted está molesta. ¿Por qué no me quiere dar una reacción? Lo que quiero saber es por qué razón su hija tomó esa decisión de quitarse la vida. Usted no tiene nada que decir.
No.
¡Vámonos! ¿Qué te hiciste? ¿Qué tú has hecho?
Que le viene a caer hacia abajo.
¿Qué tú has hecho?
Hey, get in the car. Get in the car. I got to send me units. Emergency. Gun just shot a woman, possibly coming after us. He's psychotic, man. Where am I? What funeral home am I at?
¿Cómo se llama esto?
Where am I at? Somebody's shot.
At the time of her death, Martin left behind an 18-month-old son, and she was buried next to her daughter. In 2000, Emilio Nunez was found guilty by jury in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after serving 25 years. The story is creepy again because eventually Maritza, who was alive, walking into the cemetery visiting her daughter's grave, she would soon become a body underneath a grave next to her daughter. That's what's creepy about it and sad. Next, we go back to the 1950s. James Dean's Porsche, also known as the Little Bastard. This story is going to give you creeps. First, I want to talk to you, for those of you who do not know who James Dean is. Of course, people my age are probably not going to know, and younger. James Dean was a magnetic force in Hollywood during the 1950s. Born on February 8, 1931 in Marion, Indiana, Dean's rise to fame was swift and impactful, leaving a mark in the film industry with iconic roles in movies like Rebel Without a Cause, East of Eden, and Giant. Despite his short career, his influence was monumental, establishing him as a symbol of youthful rebellion and a legend whose star burned too bright and too brief. The passion for speed. Apart from acting, James Dean had a deep passion for racing and fast cars. This love for speed was not just a hobby, but a significant part of his life. Dean often spent his free time at racetracks, pushing the limits of his vehicles. and also impressing other people of his driving skills. This passion led him to purchase one of the most infamous cars in history, the Porsche 500 Spyder. In 1955, Dean purchased the sleek silver Porsche 550 Spyder and christened it with the name Little Bastard at the back. And the car was only of 90 build, making it a rare and powerful machine. Dean's friend, Bill Hickman, also added 2 red stripes over the rear wheels and painted the number 130 on the doors, hood, and engine cover. But there was a warning though, however, because before the purchase of the Porsche, James Dean owned several fast cars, but Little Bastard seemed to captivate him the most. Friends and acquaintances noticed something unsettling about the car. Actor Alec Guinness, known for his role as Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars, famously told Dean, "If you get into that car, you will be found dead in it by this time next week." This warning would prove chillingly prophetic. Also, ironically, a couple weeks before he passed, he did an interview with Gig Young, also a famous actor. This was regarding how dangerous speeding is and that driving safe among teens was an important priority. In this video, you will see that James Dean makes a very chilling statement that ends up coming true in the end. Take a look.
People say racing is dangerous, but I'll take my chances on the track any day than on a highway. Well, Gig, I think I'd better take off.
Oh, wait a minute, Jimmy. One more question. Do you have any special advice for the young people who drive?
Take it easy driving. The life you might save might be mine. You know?
And thanks also to Story.
Now, after watching that video, it wasn't until a couple weeks later on September 30th, 1955, Dean was set to compete in a race in Salinas, California. Alongside him was his mechanic, Rolf Wutherich, who would help him prepare for the race. They started their journey from Los Angeles with Dean driving the Porsche and Rolf in the passenger seat. Dean's friend Bill Hickman and a photographer named Sanford H. Roth followed them into another car. The group made a pit stop at Blackwell's Corner for refreshments. There they met with fellow racers and enthusiasts. It was here that Dean was photographed for the last time, smiling and seemingly carefree, unaware of the tragic fate that awaited him that day. As they continued their journey, Dean was driving along U.S. Route 466, now known as State Route 46, near Chalem, California. At around 5:45 p.m., a 1950 Ford Tudor driven by a college student named Donald Turnipspeed was traveling in the opposite direction. Turnipspeed made a left turn in the intersection directly in the path of Dean's Porsche. Dean, not avoiding the collision, ended up crashing head-on into the Ford. And it wasn't until the last words to be uttered in Dean's mouth was, "That guy has to stop. He'll see us." The impact was so devastating, Dean was severely injured, and he suffered multiple fractures and internal injuries. Donald Turnipspeed walked away with minor injuries. James Dean was pronounced dead upon arrival at War Memorial Hospital, and he was only 24 years old. The signs and 2 predictions that were unfolded. Was it his fate? The news of James Dean's death shocked the world, and fans mourned the loss of the young star whose life and career were cut tragically short. The crashed site quickly became a place of pilgrimage for his admirers. However, the story of the Little Bastard was far from over. The curse of the Little Bastard is what we're going to be talking about. So after the crash, the wrecked Porsche was deemed a total loss, and George Barris, the car customizer, who had initially modified the car for Dean, purchased the wreckage for $2,500, and it was at that point that the legend of the cursed car began to take shape. Barris intended to use the car for parts and exhibitions, but almost immediately strange and deadly incidents started occurring. As the car was being unloaded at Barris' shop, it slipped off the trailer and broke a mechanic's leg. This was just the beginning of the eerie events linked to the Little Bastard. It wasn't until Barris sold the engine and drivetrain of the Porsche to 2 doctors who were racing enthusiasts, Dr. Troy McHenry and Dr. William Estrid. Each put their parts of the Little Bastard in their own race cars. During a race at the Pomona Fairgrounds, McHenry's car, which had the engine from Dean's Porsche, suddenly lost control and crashed into a tree, killing him instantly. Estrid, who had the drivetrain, was also involved in a serious accident during the same race and was severely injured. So Barris later sold 2 of the car's tires, which were in good condition, to a young man. The new owner installed them on his car, but shortly afterward both tires blew out simultaneously, causing a severe accident, and miraculously the driver survived but was left shaken by the experience. But then they took the car, and they ended up putting it into a museum so future motorists could be safe. Now, realizing the car had a dangerous reputation, Barris decided to loan the remains of the Little Bastard to the California Highway Patrol for a traveling exhibition on road safely. The intention was to use the wreck as a cautionary tale about the dangers of speeding. However, the curse seemed to follow the car wherever it went. During one of the exhibits, the car fell off from its display and broke a teenager's hip. At another location, a fire broke out in the garage where the car was stored, destroying everything except for the cursed Porsche. These incidents only added to the car's sinister legend. Then there was a mysterious disappearance, and this happened in 1960. And the car was being transported back to Barris after another safety expedition in Miami, Florida. En route, the truck carrying the Porsche mysteriously vanished and was never seen again. Despite extensive searches and investigations, the whereabouts of the little bastard remain unknown to this day, fueling even more speculation of its mystery. There have been paranormal encounters regarding this with the car. Over the years, numerous paranormal stories have emerged surrounding James Dean and the little bastard. Some people claim to have seen the ghostly image of the car speeding down the highways only for it to vanish into thin air. Others have reported hearing the sound of a revving engine with no car in sight. These ghostly encounters have added to the car's eerie reputation. One particular chilling account involves a man who, after hearing the stories of the cursed Porsche, decided to investigate the crash site. He reported feeling an overwhelming sense of dread and unease as he approached the area. As he stood near the spot where Dean had crashed, he claimed to hear the faint sound of tires screeching and an engine roaring, despite no cars being around. This frightened him, and he quickly left the area and vowed to never return again. The story of James Dean and his Porsche little bastard is a haunting and tragic tale that continues to captivate people to this day. Dean's love for speed and his untimely death left a lasting legacy in Hollywood and among his fans. The mysterious and deadly incidents linked to little bastard have only added to the car's dark legend. There's also another thing that's spooky regarding James Dean, and this is in his grave. Now, his grave is located in Fairmont, Indiana, and people always report knowing that he was a heavy smoker. People that have visited his grave reported leaving cigarettes in his grave, and the cigarettes would mysteriously disappear. There is a man who was visiting his grave one day and left a cigarette in his grave, where eventually he looks back and the cigarette is gone. Freaked out, the man leaves the cemetery, only to never return to the gravesite again. There's also a picture that I also want to show you. This was taken about 5 months before Dean passed away, and this is him laying in a casket. Now that's another linked sign of him linking to his untimely death, because here he is posing inside a casket. But he was just having fun. But as I finished to say, James Dean is remembered as a talented and charismatic actor whose potential was never fully realized, and he was good friends with Elizabeth Taylor. His brief and impactful career has left a lasting impression on the film industry, and his name remains synonymous with youthful rebellion and tragic loss. The legend of the little bastard, with its seemingly cursed history, serves as a cautionary tale about the darker side of fame and the unforeseen consequences of one's passion. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and to please like and subscribe to my channel. Have a good day, everybody, and Halloween's around the corner in a couple months.
Por favor, dale me gusta y suscríbete a este video y canal.
Shut up and subscribe, and speak English.